Hi and welcome to this podcast with me, Geeta Joshi. I'm here today with Sam Peacock. Welcome, Sam.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks so much for coming in, and I'm really pleased. We're going to be talking about your career as an artist and also, particularly around commissioning work, right? Because you've delivered quite a lot of commissioned pieces for clients and things.
Yep.
So, why don't you just sort of talk about your art style first?
It's evolved over the years, very much so. I mean, I predominantly work with steel. I think I've always worked with steel in some format. When I first started off, I used to set fire to cars. I used to take cars apart. I've let my experiences over the years influence very much what I do. As far as materials go, I use coffee in my work as well. I started using coffee when I got a commission in Florence, and that was 8 or 9 years ago. So I started using coffee then, and I've retained the use of coffee in the work. I use a lot of household paints. I think I consider myself more kind of landscape than abstract. I think I've answered that a few times in interviews where people have said, you know, where do you see yourself style-wise? And I think abstract work's always kind of influenced me. I think when I was at university, abstract was the key. But a lot of the artists that I used to look at as well were more kind of traditional. I mean, Turner's an obvious one. So it's maybe an amalgamation of influences and materials that bring together these pieces.
Yeah. So you work from a studio. Where are you at the moment? You're down in...
I live in Battle,
right,
which is
nice.
which is near Hastings, Battle of Hastings and all that.
But you've worked with... How many galleries are you working with now?
I don't know, 6 or 7?
Okay.
I think I work with 1 in Germany, 2 in Australia, 2 or 3 in England. The main one's the Curious Duke, and they're based on Whitecross Street in London, near Old Street Station. I've worked with them 7 or 8 years. Eleni's my main kind of dealer, really.
Yeah.
So that's a relationship that I've built up with Eleni and vice versa, that we've built up together. And I take a lot of influence from conversations and meetings with Eleni. And I think vice versa. I mean, I don't have that much influence over her and her gallery business, but I think we all work together to make the business quite successful.
Yeah. And she's taken your work to Affordable Art Fair and places as well.
Yeah, I do all the affordables with the Curious Duke. I've done them for the past 7 years. It's probably even longer than that. I've been working with Eleni then. Well, it's been a while. She must have been open 7 years. So, and I've always done the Battersea show, the Hampstead show, and we used to do Bristol together. So they're the 3 main affordable art fairs that we do. And
then, so let's talk about commissions.
Okay.
So do you get most of your commissions through galleries, or how does that work for you?
Well, being represented by galleries, a lot of commissions come to me directly through the gallery, and I let the galleries take care of the majority of pricing. I think that's one of the big things. So I don't actively get involved in pricing. I think what we do is we look at the work that I've got on the wall, as you like already, and what that goes for. Yeah. And then I believe the galleries roughly go to that. I know just from speaking to Eleni, with especially the larger commissions, I know we kind of roughly go from work on the wall, and just if it's double that size, it's
scaling up the price accordingly, right? Yeah, because when I've managed commissions, like when buyers have come to me and they wanted to commission one of my artists, then it's essentially the same price as it would be on the wall had it not been a commissioned piece. Yeah. But then in the case of them wanting something larger, then the price is sort of scaled up again. But at the same time, it's as if I were ever to have shown a piece like that, it would have been the same price. So I think the idea of commissioning artwork often puts people off because they think it's going to be, significantly more expensive. I just think it all sounds very glamorous and dramatic, but it's actually in terms of pricing, it's actually the same as, like we say, that you would see.
I think the price is the last real aspect of it. I mean, the main thing is to get the piece as the client wants it. That's the really important bit, and that comes from a series of conversations about what the client wants, especially if the client wants something specific to maybe where they live, or maybe if they've just moved to a new house and they've just got new carpets or whatever, and they want a piece of work. And a lot of people do want a piece of work that goes with the interiors of the house. Right. It's knowing what the client's got and what size they want. And a lot of that comes from just speaking to the clients. And a lot of that goes to Eleni, and she'll pass on things to me.
Yeah, I think they're quite interesting conversations when they want them for, specific interiors, because I've had that as well, where people have actually chosen the colours of what they want in it. So the way I've done it is actually sent them, because the particular piece I'm thinking of that one of the commissions that I had somebody come to me for was they wanted a particular colour palette, so we sent them samples of the papers and things that would be used in that commission. How do you do that? Do you send them studies or maquettes?
So I do a few test pieces of the colours. I generally mix all my own colours. I've got a really good paint dealer. I use, like I said, I use exterior paint. I use exterior gloss. I generally stick with the primaries unless somebody really wants something specific. But I think over the years, I can generally get the colours that people want. Yeah. And a lot of my process as well, like I said at the start, I use a lot of fire. So I've got a fire pit at home and I set fire to it. Everything I do, I set fire to it. It's part of the process. And it's very much process driven. It gets set fire to a few times and it takes the edge off the colours, dulls it down a touch. I think a lot of my clients know that, and I do try and explain my process. So sometimes you meet clients at kind of gallery shows, openings, various things that we do, and that's kind of how the business almost starts, really. Yeah. They'd meet you, I'd refer them to Eleni, and they'll talk to Eleni about what they want because they've spoke to me maybe previously, or they've seen something or read something, about me, and they quite like what I'm doing.
Yeah, nice. I think that is. Yeah, one of those things, actually. People don't normally come in and go, just see it online and think, oh, I'll commission them, right? I think there's it's sort of nurtured through conversations and all of that sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the important thing is that the client can always see what's going on with the work.
Yeah.
So I'd always send just simple photos. And I'd sit, in the studio, a lot of the time it's just take a photo on your phone, ping it off, and it goes off to the client. And then they'll give feedback to Eleni, and she'll reverse the feedback to me, and then the dialogue continues through there. I mean, I've always said for like the mid-range kind of commissions give me like 6 weeks, and that's just the drying time of the paint. A lot of that is drying time and just finishing things off, because the paint sometimes it just takes an age to dry. I think after you've set fire to everything, it's so tacky and sticky afterwards. So it's just getting the conditions right in the studio. So my studio is just built at the bottom of the garden. So it's traditional. I mean, my wife calls it the shed, and I say it's not a shed. Don't degrade it. It's not a shed. It's a studio. You've got to be in the mindset where it's a studio, else it just turns into a shed. And my daughter will dump a bike in there and said, "You're not putting your bike in the studio," and that's it.
So, how tight a brief do most of your clients? I appreciate they come through the gallery, but sort of how tight a brief do you usually receive?
I mean, that's a good question. I think brief-wise,
because people would already know your visual language, right? They know an approximation of this is what Sam's work looks like.
Yeah.
So they've already got a gist of.
You might just get, I'd like that in a blue and a toffee colour on top.
Okay.
And I remember one commission, and the client wanted caramel. For ages, for some reason, I just got that chocolate bar that we had when we were kids. The Caramac, was it the Caramac bar?
Oh, yes.
Do you remember Caramac?
Yes, I do.
And that's, I just got it stuck in my head that it should look like a Caramac. And I went out and bought loads of toffee and caramel colours. And I just thought, it's going to have to look a little bit like that. So I sent some photos off to Eleni of these colours. And she goes, yeah, I think that's where they're at with it. And it was as simple as that. And sometimes the research could be, a lot of it's just me getting my head straight on it. So.
And what about something you mentioned when we were talking before about people wanting, because your work actually references landscape, right, and the history of those landscapes or that environment as well. Do you get quite a lot of commissions, or is that kind of rarer where they want you to reference something that's important to them in terms of environmental context?
I did a commission for someone in Wiltshire, and they wanted me to reference parts of Wiltshire. So I spent some time. I went down to Wiltshire, had a wander around, took some photos, made some initial sketches. I think being a landscape painter, you'd look at kind of important landscape. I mean, Wiltshire is full of important landscape stuff, especially around Salisbury Plains. And so, then you've got all kind of Stonehenge, that's all Wiltshire as well.
Yeah.
So, and the history surrounding that. So you could talk about that, while you're making the work. And I think the clients quite enjoy an artist who, in theory, should know his stuff or should know his history and geography.
Nice.
I spent a lot, I'm into camping. I like camping. I like walking. I go metal detecting. It's all part of the wider story, isn't it, really?
Yeah, interesting.
I'm more a hands-on kind of artist than...
So on a piece like that, how long would you have spent researching and camping and walking and
I don't really put a time period on it. I think to be a landscape painter, you've just got to know the landscape because the landscape's always changing. I think I did a show about fracking with the Curious Duke, and that was in 2015. And I spent so much time researching fracking and researching how the landscape changes. And part of that is when you meet the client and they're interested in something, you say, well, look, I did this, I did that, and that's all part of the research that goes with it. So it's not a kind of, I don't say I'll spend a week researching it. It might be, it's research that you've done previously in notes.
Yeah, I see what you mean,
I keep kind of extensive notes of things as visual records to places and memories of places. You know, I think I fill my time up with reading and sketching and drawing and thinking. And I think that's part of just being the artist, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's actually, when you're really serving that client as well, right? Because that research is always going to inform future work that you do anyway, right? So like you say, if memories, it's actually because it's something you read or a place you visited 10 years ago or something,
exactly.
Right? It's not a fresh thing. Let's talk about, you've done some really large commissions, right?
I have.
And some of the considerations around that.
I think Novotel was the largest commission. That was over 2 floors. And that was, if you've been to Novotel, when you go into the lobby, my work...
And this one is the one in Canary Wharf, right?
That's the flagship Novotel hotel in Canary Wharf, and they use it for business meetings and all that sort of stuff. So as soon as you go in the lobby, my work occupies 9 metres of wall, which is about 4 metres tall, just under 4 metres tall the wall is. So it's a tall old wall.
Yeah.
And then as you go up the stairs to the right, to the main coffee bar, my work occupies the coffee bar wall. So it's just literally floor to ceiling.
Yeah.
And there's doors in it, and there's curves, there's various angles, there's staircases in it. It's like 18 metres of art.
And very site specific as well, right? If you've had to
It has to be research. I mean, what the client wanted, what they give you is they give you a bit of carpet and they give you a few mock-ups of what they want. But then they say, go and research Canary Wharf. And I think when I first started out as a painter, I used to walk around Canary Wharf anyhow. Just because of the coffee trade, and I was using coffee in the work anyway. So it's important to understand it. And I said, well, look, I know this about Canary Wharf. I know about the spice trade, the coffee trade, you know, all these various docks that are not there anymore, where there's kind of, when they built the land here or they haven't built the land there, then there's kind of old sailors' missions around Canary Wharf and the stuff with the East India Company, you know. So I think a lot of that, I went and bought old East India Company rifles because they were just so physical and hands-on. And that's all part of the research, and you know, you kind of you want it, and then you read about, you know, the horrors of the slave trade and all that sort of stuff. Then I kind of read about the Indian Mutiny, and there's so much kind of research that goes into it. So when you go and meet the client, and then I did an interview with Novotel, and it was on French TV, and I do speak French, but not enough.
TV interview standard.
No, jeez, no. I couldn't do that. And but thankfully they spoke very good English. As a lot of Europeans do, you'll find a lot of Europeans do speak very good English. It's just that I don't speak French that well at all. And I spoke quite fluently about my research over the years, and they were quite impressed with that, you know. And at least they mooted they were quite impressed with it. And
I'm sure they were.
I think a lot of that, it helps you kind of put the client at ease, that you know, you generally know what you're doing.
Yeah. What stage was the building actually? Was it complete? Because I'm guessing that your work had to go in before they actually opened, right?
Yeah. That was when we installed in Canary Wharf. The installation took an age, and there were so many problems with the hotel itself. There were so many issues with the hotel. It was falling, not falling apart, but there was walls that are plastering because they had a water leak.
Oh, right.
And there was just so many issues with it. It just got to the point.
So with that project at the Novotel, what stage were they commissioning the work? Because I'm guessing the hotel wasn't actually open and running, and because that's a new build, right? So
when we started the project, the hotel was just concrete and steel. It was just concrete and steel walls. There was no interiors, no floors. So we went to measure up. That was the first thing we did. We went to I've got a fabricator who works for me, a bloke called Jude. Very good friend of mine. Worked with Jude for years. He's a welder and a knife maker by trade. Very good friend. I said, look, I've got this project. I'm going to need you on the project. So we employed Jude, and Jude measured everything accurately for me. Made some calculations on the amount of steel that we need, and we needed about 1/2 ton of sheet steel.
Oh my God.
So that's all in 0.9 mil steel. So the boring basics of this is that the steel is kind of like, if I get your bit of paper there, that's about that thick, that's 0.9 mil.
Right.
So that's nothing. That's what the majority of the steel is. So there's 1/2 ton of that. And so I thought, okay, so schematics of that means 19 metres by 4 metres, half a tonne. So my studio then encompassed my garden and my driveway. So I've got a nice driveway.
Yeah.
Thankfully, all in stone and shale, so you can walk on it. And my garden's on a hill. So I laid everything, all the steel out when we bought it, when the money came through. You don't do anything till the money's in the bank. So all the steel come through, and we laid it all out. And Jude had got it all cut to the millimetre for me. And a lot of the pieces were angulated, so you'd kind of have an 83-degree turn. Right,
To fit the walls, where it was going to go?
A weird turn, yeah. So,
okay.
And then there was a door in it, and that was a funny little angle. That caused the most problems out of all of it, because the door would then, I think there was a 133-degree turn into a door. So you're not talking about painting your hang on the wall, you're talking about an entire fabricated section of wall.
Right, yeah. So were you working with like the architects, or I mean, was there anybody else involved in?
They were
sort of
based
giving you that
in France, so I would send my initial photos, to the gallery who were doing the project at the time. They would then send that off to France.
Yeah.
It would then go through various bodies of people who would yay or nay it. Before I did any of this, I sent colour samples off. So I'd done some 8 or 9 colour sampled pieces of the blues that I could see in the pieces that they'd sent me. And I stuck with a blue called Javan Dawn. Javan Dawn is on the Dulux colour chart, if you're that.
All right.
They wanted something along that sort of line. That was what I'd got, and I thought, this is quite specific. I might not mess around as much as I'd usually mess around with this. And we stuck to a kind of a turquoise that was Javan Dawn. And I made lots of samples with the various Javan Dawn sphere that you could have, as well as some traditional Oxford blues, which we'd sent off as well. And they just chose 2 or 3 colours. And then there was a red that I mix up that I put into a lot of my work anyway. And they were quite interesting, the reds. I sent a lot of kind of like gingers as well, like ginger colours. I think that kind of links with kind of turmeric, because obviously the spice trade.
Yeah.
Turmeric's got a very kind of yellow colour, and I spent time messing around with turmeric and rice, making like a nice yellow, like a basmati.
Yeah.
I thought that's quite enough, but it needs to be darker and deeper than that. So you kind of think, well, there's a start, and then you don't want it too gingy. You want to kind of meet in the middle. So it's a case of just mixing up lots of paint, finding the one that I was happy with, and I thought they'd be happy with, making some steel sheets up and sending them off in the post, and then getting them approved, really, and then laying all the steel out. And then they wanted rust as well. They wanted this kind of ginger rust. So I thought, okay, how are we going to make rust? Now I've got rust down now. I can make a rusted surface on steel in about 2 hours. Actually, I can do it in half an hour. If you want rust, I can make you rust in half an hour. It's like a claim to fame. So it's a mix of ferric with it, which is iron, and chloride. So mix ferric and chloride together, and it will give you a nice formula with water that when you spray it onto a sanded sheet steel surface, put a blowtorch on it. So if you use like a butane propane mix, which burns at about 1,330 something degrees, if you put all that together, you can confidently create rust.
Perfect. Thanks for that recipe.
So a lot of it is chemical research.
Yeah.
Speaking to people who know better than you about chemicals and saying where to buy the chemicals from. It's a case of knowledge, understanding, and listening to people. As much as artists think they know it all, I didn't know it all at all.
So then when you sent off those samples, how was that feedback? Was there a lot back and forth, or were they sort of happy to let you really drive?
No. I went to give a presentation to one of the main architects at Novotel when it was still a building site, and that was just a simple half-hour presentation of where I was at and my studies, and they seemed quite happy with that. I think a lot of the time people just nod and agree, don't they? And they're quite...
Yeah, I mean, I think particularly when they're sort of looking at those projects, there's like so many different aspects, right, that sort of lead architect has got to sign off on. Yeah. They just want to know that actually you're going to deliver on time, and it's all... And
it's a quick turnover. Good. That was a quick turnover. I created everything in 3 weeks, and I was told it was a quick turnover. It's like, okay, I can do all that in 3 weeks. That's not a problem at all. So from originally what I said before the interview, when I said I'll always give you 6 weeks to let the paint dry, this time I'd got a lot less time. But then there's being quite naive at the time to building projects. Like I said, it's my first building project, so being quite naive to it, I'd assume buildings go up quite quick. Buildings don't go up quite quick. They seem to go up quite quick, but they don't. Right. They go up, but it's not...
done, is it?
No. And we were installing it when it was still a building site, which we shouldn't have done. But I think the people in the gallery that were looking after me at the time, they were under pressure, so it's very understandable to get it on the wall, and you have to work, like I said, you have to work with everybody, and you have to work the best you can.
Yeah.
It doesn't always go as you want, and there were so many ups and downs with that project. But I think you learn from it. You have to learn from the experience of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. As much as you go and turn them and say, yeah, I can do that, I don't think for me, I couldn't. Although I said, yeah, I could do all that. I thought, actually, it's going to be quite hard.
But I think in your case as well, you obviously had resources available to draw on. Obviously, you had the gallery to sort of back you, but then you had your fabricator and, you've got all of that in place, right?
Jude was my biggest kind of go-to man.
Yeah.
No matter, he was my go-to man for and he still is. He's an absolute... If I had the resources to employ Jude full-time on the money that he wants, and if I had the amount of work on, which confidently one day I will, I'd employ Jude like that, like a shot. Because he's just an amazing fellow. He's just so knowledgeable. He's got a very high kind of IQ set on everything involving metal and chemicals, and it's just, there we go, that's what I want.
That's what you want, right? Somebody that can do that, cover that part of it for you, right? So how much time do you spend researching and looking for projects,
I've just took on, it's not at liberty to tell you where it is yet or who it's with. I've just took on a very large project in East London with the Curious Duke Gallery. And it's going to be an exterior project for a large company owned by a sovereign wealth fund from another country.
Nice.
So for that, I put together, similar to this, a sample of work of what I'd suggest. We needed to make CAD drawings and then mock-ups of how it would look, put all that together on a PowerPoint presentation, and then cost it. So for the costings for this, I did it myself. It was the first time I've ever sat and costed up an entire, because it's a bit larger than Novotel, this one. So it's a cost up from start, but like I said, you learn as you go.
Yes.
So you know what you are, costings with steel, with time, with fabrication, and then the materials you need to lumber bits of steel around. So for this, we'll need winches, and we'll make the winches ourselves. So all that needs to be factored in. So there's a lot in it. So you have to sit down, and like I said, art. You talk about artist life, but I paint quite quick. I get the paintings done. And the majority of the time, I spend in dialogue and discussion and planning with people, and on the phone most of the day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I run an art fair as well, but I spend a lot. I think it's all a bit like that. I think I spend a lot of my time with Roy on the phone. Me and Roy talk every day for a good hour every day at least, and then I talk to Jude every other day for about an hour on and off. And a lot of the time it is just planning. And when I'm not planning, when I'm in the studio planning or.
So do you normally just have obviously you've got, the art fair sort of as a sort of separate project, but in terms of your own artwork, are you really just doing one commission at a time? Particularly I'm guessing when you've got a large thing like that.
Yeah, a lot of the time I'm planning for busy times of the year. So busy for us is March, April, May, and then September, October, November.
Oh, yeah.
So at the moment, what am I doing? Art fairs. I'm doing Brussels at the moment. So right now, the art's in Brussels, and that's with a gallery in Germany.
Yeah.
Called Folly and Muse. So I let them take my work to the art fairs that they do. And then I've got a solo show in May. So since January, I've been making work for the solo show. I've also got a gallery in Australia who are showing work for me. So that went off to Australia in January. So that started in November. So you kind of just backtrack the projects.
Right, yeah.
And put lots of timescales on projects. I think this works for that gallery, that works for that gallery. That's going to take 3 months, 5 months.
I see, yeah.
That's next. So the calendar's drawn. And as projects come in, you kind of just try and fit them in.
Yeah.
So I can do that month, and you can have it that month. Or if somebody rings up and says, can you do something next week? And if I can push a calendar project back a bit, or, work double shifts on something, I'll quite happily do that. Or just make the work at the same time.
Yeah, I see. Wow.
So, it's busy. But it's got progressively busier. Mm-hmm. But to do that, you have to have faith and focus.
And I think that also sort of helps, being with multiple galleries, right? So obviously, they're promoting your work in giving shows and group shows.
Galleries work very hard. For artists. I think a lot of that can be undersold, and you don't always hear that. But the Curious Duke worked very hard for me, and Following Muse worked very hard for me. Attic Design in Australia worked very hard for me, and there are galleries out there just work very hard for you. Highgate Contemporary. Hannah's gallery. I've known Hannah years, and she works very hard. She puts little shows on. She works very hard for you.
Yeah.
So you just have to kind of sing along and do it, really.
Yeah. No, it's great. You've actually got some, really great relationships actually with your,
that's the most
the dealers as well.
thing.
It is, isn't it? I think. Yeah.
It's a really important part of it, you know. A lot of artists, I think now, running an art fair, you get to talk to so many artists and how they work. Mm-hmm. A lot of artists, you can see them kind of thinking, I'll do it on my own. And they're good salesmen as well. You know, I think with Roy's People Art Fair, me and Roy get to see how people sell work. And you think, you know, you're an absolute amazing salesperson, but I'm in no way a salesperson. And I would hate to stand with my own stand at Roy's People Art Fair, because I wouldn't know what to do. Yeah. I'd just talk about art all day.
So, that's just about recognising your own, the things that you enjoy, right? Because I'm sure there are the people that actually really enjoy talking about their work as well. You know, I really like the selling side because I really like talking to.
Well, the work sells itself, but you know, if somebody wants it, they'll buy it. It's as simple as that. Yeah. But sometimes you do need a good person to front the work. You need a good person to front the work, you know. And as much as I'm confident that my work sells itself, and I'm just not that. I just can't.
But that's
I can't do all that.
Yeah, but you're not expected to either.
No, that's why I work with galleries. Yeah, but there are some artists out there, very good artists, you know, that will just happily take their work to an art fair and go and sell their work and sell a lot of their work. And they're very good brands, really.
Yeah, I think it's a good skill set to have, you know.
Very much so. Very much so.
You know, it just kind of opens different doors, but yeah. Sam, thanks so much for coming in and having this chat. Why don't you tell people where they can follow you online?
So, on Instagram, you can find me at Sam Peacock Art, and you should find me on that. If you want to follow me on that, you can do.
Perfect. And then tell us about your upcoming show in London.
So I have a solo show at the Curious Duke, which opens on the 3rd, so Thursday the 3rd of May this year, 6 o'clock onwards. So come along and see that if you want.
And how long's that run for?
That's going to run for the month, and it's called Of the Land, and there'll be a whole body of new work, so it won't be the work you've seen previously. It's really a new body of work.
Excellent.
Trying out some new exciting styles and ideas, really.
Brilliant.
So it just shows where I'm at as an artist at present. And
how that sort of evolved as well, right? Because as you said before, like, you know, your work from 5 years ago has sort of evolved while you still have kind of, I think you still have a very strong visual language. Yeah. You know, I think, it's evolved into...
It has to, and it always will.
Brilliant. And on Instagram, you can find me at the Geeta Joshi, on Twitter at Geeta Joshi, or at empower_artist. And if you'd like to join our Facebook group for artists and makers, where we talk about all sorts of things related to working with galleries and the artist's career, then you can find that link in the show notes to this podcast, or you can find it at facebook.com/groups/studio to retail.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.